Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hamilton Freshman School. I'm Chris Marcello from our history department. We know them and honor them as the greatest generation. Ordinary American men and women who gave of themselves to accomplish ordinary things for both their country and the world. Today is both an honor and a privilege to welcome one of those men of the greatest generation who did extraordinary things in service to his country. Russ Carr was born on August 4th, 1918, in Medora, Indiana. This year, he will turn a young 100 years old. At the age of 9, Russ and his family of 6 siblings moved from Medora to Lawrenceburg, Indiana, to a 2-room, bedroom log cabin. Russ finally recalls growing up in Lawrenceburg and the simple life he lived in that cabin with his siblings and parents. He also never fails to mention that the cabin had mud and paper between the logs to keep the cold and wind out. In September of 1942, while delivering milk house to house for Probst Dairy, Russ was drafted into the Army. Following training stints in Texas and Louisiana, Russ ultimately ended up in Boston, Massachusetts, to begin his journey to Europe. On January 17th, Russ boarded a boat for Scotland. The 12-day journey was long and exhausting. Upon arriving, Russ was assigned to the 125th Mechanized Cavalry Reconnaissance Troops as an armored car driver. More training ensued as Russ and his unit prepared for D-Day. On July 1st, 1944, Russ landed on Omaha Beach in Normandy, France, with the 125th Mechanized Cavalry as D-Day was underway. It should be noted that Russ actually drove onto the beach in his armored car with water up to his chest. At this point, Russ and his unit began the liberation of Europe from the wrath of the Germans. For the next 308 days, combat duty ensued for Russ, involving 5 major campaigns that took him through France, Belgium, Holland, and Germany. Highlights from this journey involved his participation in the Battle of the Bulge, liberation of the Dachau concentration camp in Germany, and receiving the Bronze Star for heroic action in April of 1945 for stopping a German Panzer tank. The journey finally ended when Russ and his unit arrived at the Elbe River in Germany on April 29, 1945, making the first contact with the Russian army as Berlin, Germany fell. Russ returned back to Indiana in October of 1945 and was honorably discharged from the Army. He was proud of his service and often recalls the inspiration he felt when seeing the American flag while in combat duty. Russ was married to his wife, Mary Louise, in 1946, and they moved to Hamilton so Russ could pursue a career as a butcher. Russ and his wife were happily married for 71 years, and they have one daughter, Willa Ramsey. Russ currently resides in the Lindenwold area of Hamilton, where he proudly displays the American flag. Would everyone give a warm Hamilton freshman welcome to Mr. Russ Carr?
Thank you. Well, we were sitting there. I was on June the 6th. I was sitting there in Southampton, England. Airplanes and gliders and C-46s was pulling. The sky was just black with them. So they went and started to drop them off. Some of them got dropped off early. Some of them was 8 to 15 miles off of their drop limit. Some of them got dropped in Army maneuvers. And down on the beach, they figured the tide was coming in too quick. They did figure it wrong, and it was a lot of drop. They dropped the ramps too early and went out. They got in the water. They had their full field pack on, 65 pounds. They couldn't swim. They drowned. We lost a lot of equipment and a lot of fellas, 25 fellas, 2,500 fellas in 15 minutes we lost. But as the time went on, they fought and fought. Finally, we got they got the beachhead and got where we could get our vehicles in. There was so many casualties on the beach, they had to take a bulldozer and kind of push them aside so we could make a path to get in. And there was 175,000 men that took part in that there invasion. So they fought for 2 weeks. And then there along the channel, why Hitler figured there would be an invasion. So then people lived along there. They got anything they asked for. Wouldn't make no difference. And then some of the girls would stand out there and try to get the soldiers in the house where they could probably shoot them or something, but they wouldn't go. And so Hitler was afraid that there was going to be an invasion. So he had Rommel. He was the top general of his outfit. He was in Africa, so he brought him up from Africa to guard the channel. And Rommel's birthday was coming up, and his wife was having a birthday party for him back in Berlin. Well, he put up a false minefield, which held us up for a while. Finally, we made it through, found out it was false, and we got through there. Then we got to the hedgerow country. Now, the hedgerow country is nothing but an open field, I'd say about like a city block, but not hardly as big. And around it was about a 4-foot dirt levee. And on top of it were hedges. And each corner and in the center, the German paratroopers had a machine gun nest. And so there's only one way in and one way out, where you went in. So they come up with the idea, the tanks, that they put fork and teeth on the metal, and they go right through that. That's how we got through there. And so we kept going, and we got there at St. Lo, and we didn't have to do any fighting. We set up on the hill, and we had these 5-in-1 rations. That's what we eat out of. And we was fixing, 5 of us was fixing our breakfast, and the lieutenant come around and visited us. He says, well, we're going out today, because I won't be coming back. So he sat down and eat a little bit with us, and sure enough, we went out, and he got bumped off right away. And when we got down, there was a field, there's a road coming down this way, a road going this way, and then there was a fork in the road. And in between them, that fork, was forest. So we went down this side, they went down that side. And when they heard noise over there, we started shooting over it. We shooting at our own men. Couldn't tell who they were. Well, we got that straightened out. And when they took and got us down the road, I seen my friend, one that showed me how to play blackjack, and we played cards back in the camp. He come all bent over in the Jeep with a hole in the back of his head about like that. Couldn't figure out what happened. Here over the road there was a tree, and this here big limb. There was a machine gun guy up in there. And every time one of them Jeeps go by, he'd shoot him in the back of the head. So one of the guys seen what was happening, seen the leaves are moving. He could turn his .50 caliber loose on him, and he'd come out of there. Well, we went on down and got things going pretty good. And we went to the Germans took and come up with a crazy idea of putting a wire across. We run with the Jeeps, windshield down, and put a wire across the road. And at nighttime, you're traveling, you run across that wire, off goes your head. Well, so we had about, we went to this here concentration camp, and his name, it was Dung Hao, and he had a red-headed woman. She was a doll. Oh, man, she was pretty. He caught anybody looking at her, he got shot on the spot. And they got the crazy notion using the tattoos for lampshades, picture frames. I got pictures of it here. Picture frames, and first one thing, the other. Use their fingers for light switches. And so we went on. When you're out, when they sent us out to find a place where the infantry we would hold it till the infantry or the tanks come up with it. And then they move us on further. We was in the forefront the most part of the time. When come to the Battle of the Bulge, why, they took and Germans put straw down so the tank tracks wouldn't make noise. And that was there at Aragon, the forest. It was so thick, which they tried the same thing in World War I. And they finally come through, and when they come through, the tanks overrun the infantry, and they had to surrender, 106. And when they surrendered, there was some of them wounded and everything, and the German soldiers come along and finished them off. And word got around, when the word got around, they said, we take no more SS troops prisoners. And we didn't. So when they finally fought there for a long time, and we moved on. They moved us on. And when we got moved on, it went in this town. And the sergeant says, it was after dark, go around that truck. There was a truck parked in the center of the road, street. And when he went around it, I went around it. He said, go across that bridge. There was a bridge here. I could see a 55-gallon drum or something on it. I did. Sergeant says, go across that bridge. I said, Sergeant, I ain't going across that bridge. He said, you go across that bridge or I'll court-martial. I'll get your court-martial out. I'm not going. So about that time, the truck caught on fire. And then the tank on the bridge caught on fire. There we sat between two fires. And I told the sergeant, I said, back me out of here. And the radio operator said, he's not back there. He left us. Him and the gunner both jumped out and left us. And I said, the bullets was bouncing off the turret. I said, you better close your hatch. And if I'd have been 2 minutes slower, I would never have been sitting here talking about this, because I knew when we got it closed, it went spat. Right, it went halfway through that hatch. So finally, we got out of there, and I never did see that sergeant or that gunner no more the rest of the time. I guess they're still running. I don't know where they're at. Well, anyhow, we kept on going. We got there to Octon. Well, there was a guy come up with a load of gasoline, 5-gallon tank, 6x6. And he stopped there. We was waiting for our orders. He says, which way is Octon? They said, that way. And about that time, the artillery started flying. He said, back this way is Octon. So when you could go into Octon, you could go in the basement, and you could travel the whole house without getting underground, in through the basement. So we went to this here, lots of these concentration camps. They take and there was 2 guys talking about what they'd done and everything. Well, there was 2 women, each one run a concentration camp. Their Sunday afternoon entertainment, you know what a cat of 9 tails is? It's a stick with a lot of strings of leather in it. And they take and beat them, see which one could beat their one to death. And they pour boiling water down their privates. They just did everything. They dig their eyeballs out, cut their ears off. And so this one guy, he says, that ain't nothing. He says, I done a lot worse than that. He says, what'd you do? Well, he says, I can take and swash a boy in half, 10-year-old boy, half with one swash of the axe. And they didn't believe him. So they went out on the street, got a 10-year-old boy, and brought him back in, made him get down on his hands and knees, cover his face up. He took one slice of the axe and cut him in half. These things, now, the way I understand it, Hitler never ordered that. It was his officers who done all that dirty work. But we went on, kept on going. And we had an Air Force guy back at headquarters, and we were so far ahead of him, he would report back to headquarters where we were at, and we ran out of gasoline. He told him, she better bring us some gasoline up. Where are they? He said, they can't be that far. He says, I can look right down at them, I see them. So when they bought us some gasoline up, we went on. And when they, after we got our gasoline and everything, we moved on. We got up there to Elbe River in Germany, and we sat there 2 weeks. They wouldn't let us go any further into Germany, into Berlin. They wanted the Russians to take Berlin, which a good thing it did, that Hitler Youth. They were wild. Russians lost 80,000 soldiers there, and the Germans only lost about 15,000. So they taken this here camp in Poland. Why, the commandant there would take and issue guns and rifles to the kids and tell them go down in the ghettos and target practice on women. Just first one thing, dirty one thing and the other. So we sat there on the Elbe River for 2 weeks. And then finally, we were supposed to we were first to contact the Russians. They were supposed to shoot up a red flag. We shot up a white flag to let us know who was who. And got over across the river. We had a fellow from New York, private from New York. He could talk Russian. He went with the lieutenant and the sergeant over to make contact with the Russians. When he got over there, he says, they party all night. Says they bring their girls right with them. They party. Says that vodka flows like nobody's business. So he said he had a rough time. So that's about the limit I can say because of the things that I remember. But when you were in an armored car, you take care of the vehicle. You don't get to go out. And then there was one time as a lieutenant, he got pinned down, so we had to go get him out. Had to go and get him out. When you go on a patrol, we have a 5-man patrol. We didn't have to worry too much. But when they come around and said a 15-man patrol, look out, we're going to run into trouble. So that's about what I know, what I remember, everything. Now, can I ask you a question? Do you know what D stands for in D-Day? Anybody got any idea? Disembark. That's what it stands for. That'll take care of it.
Do you want to talk about
Russ.
the conditions in the vehicle and what the armored car was and how many people and?
Oh, there was, in our armored car, there was four people. Was the driver, which was me, and there was a radio operator, and there was gunner, and the sergeant. Sergeant was a car commander. And then we had these, it was two shifts on the floor. We had these little gas burners, one burner. It was about the size of a fruit jar. And we go down to the burgermaster and get potatoes, orange, eggs. We'd have eggs, potatoes. And the radio operator, he'd peel the potatoes, slice them, put them in the mess kit, and I'd stir them. And when I got them all stirred, everybody get their knife, and I'd pass them around. We'd take, that's how we eat. Then sometimes we couldn't do that. We put our hot stuff, get our stuff hot, put it on the manifold of the vehicle, get it warm. But the armor car, in back of my seat, we had a metal box. It was about 3/8 of an inch thick. The metal was, and had we had about 2 dozen 37 millimeter shells. And if they'd have hit that, it'd have blown us all to go. Well, anyhow, there was on this armor car, I could make it do just about anything except do wheelies. It had a dual, it did wheelies, had a dual on the back, they wouldn't go up. But we had a lot of fun there. We sat there on the Elbe River for 2 weeks, and we have a deer. When we had wanted something to eat, we'd go out and carve off a hunk of deer and put it on the fire and burn it. I about got shot twice over there, just by my own people. Well, I had to get up and go to the slit trench one night early, and the guard out there. I heard him cock his rifle. I said, "Don't shoot!" It's me. But anyhow.
Did you ever take a bath there? Were you able to take a bath at all, Russ?
No, we didn't. We 308 days without a bath. We run around and couldn't stand on one another. But anyhow, we got it over with. If we had some of them generals and some of them men we had over there in World War II, we'd had that mess cleaned up over there in Iraq. We had some very, very good fighting men. They weren't afraid of nothing. You had a mission to go on, you was out there doing it.
Take a few questions.
Huh?
Yeah, go. Yeah,
Take
Chris.
a few questions.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone like to ask a question of Russ? I mean, this is living history. This is not the kind of stuff you're going to get in a textbook or a worksheet. This is a real live World War II veteran. So this is your chance to ask any question about World War II. I want to know what you thought. You talked about the Russians partying. Did the Americans have a sense of, camaraderie with the Russians, or did you already start to see them as the enemy? The Russians, the Soviets. How did you guys view the Soviet army? Did you view them as friends, or?
Well, they didn't come up and connect with us very much, real close. I think I got a picture where one guy had met him, he shook hands with him, and then they went the other direction. They didn't stick around too long. They were odd.
But Patton wanted to go into Berlin, didn't he?
Patton wanted to go into Berlin, but they wouldn't let us go in Berlin. Patton was in the south, and we were in the northern part. And when they had the Battle of the Bulge, Patton come up and help us out, get rid of that bulge. My brother was the oldest brother was with Patton. Then my youngest brother, he was with Bradley. And me, he was in the combat engineer with one eye. But, any other questions?
Don't be afraid.
What was your overall feeling when you got drafted? Like, were you excited to be drafted? Was that something that
Right.
you?
What was your feeling when you got drafted? Tell them what you got in the mail when you got drafted.
Well, you want to know what my draft notice said?
Sure.
Says, I opened it up, and it says, greetings and salutations. Your neighbors have selected you to serve. I don't think they were my neighbors or my friends.
Who was the head general for the head general?
Bill. And I was with Bradley. If Bill would crack his laugh, his face would crack.
Yeah.
But he was at West Point for 25 years.
He was fluent in French and German. He was fluent in French and German, too.
Yeah.
He was a career military man. He had a lineage of his parents and everyone were all career military people. He's actually buried in Arlington National Cemetery.
We would go out on a mission, and when we get it done, they come up, and maybe we get a little rest. Well, the colonel, the Biddle, would go down to regimental headquarters, and he'd say, well, my man wants to work. He said, we got to get him a mission. And they'd kick him out of there, and he'd sit out on the steps and cry because he didn't get no mission. He kept us going all the time. In fact, one time we were there in France, there was a woods coming down, and on each side was a vacant field. We was on one side, the Germans on the other. And what happened, he decided he wanted a dress parade. We had a dress parade, the Germans on the other side. They, bang, bang, they got us.
Is there anything you regret not doing while you were serving?
Is there anything you regret not doing when you were serving? Was there anything that you regretted when you were serving in the service?
Regret?
Yeah.
No, I was glad to get my serving. I'm glad at what I done. I was not a bit afraid to go because I love my country. And I'd do anything for it. And if there'd be another war and we were in it, I would be willing to go at my age.
I'm sure they take you.
Uh,
They would take you.
Yeah,
too.
Now, did you work with any other countries? Didn't you say you had a Belgium person assigned?
yeah,
you?
we had a
Britain?
Belgium freedom fighter. He stayed with us all the while. He helped us out quite a bit, and he took my picture, and we were going out on a mission. The schoolhouse was here. We thought we was going to get to rest a little bit, so they come over to headquarters. That you got to go to the mission. Go down here so far. Well, they got started down there, and the Germans started throwing artillery shells. Well, instead of sending all 3 cars down, they sent 2 Jeeps down there to check out. And this Belgium underground, he got over there in the ditch over there, and he snapped my picture. Sitting there. Anything else?
Is there anyone left in your unit?
Huh?
And is there anyone left in your unit?
Well, we used to have a reunion every year. It was the Iowa National Guard. And them people out there in Iowa are really nice people. And so many had died off that they just quit having it. There's a few left. I got a list of all of our soldiers, where they got killed, how they got killed, where they're buried at and everything. It's about 4 pages. We lost quite a few guys. We were sitting there on someplace there in France. There was a bridge. So this sergeant went across this bridge walking, and he got shot. And he walked all the way back to where we were at, and he lost so much blood he died. And there was a truck parked on it, and there was German in there. And one of the shells must have sheared his lower jaw. He was coming down the road. He didn't have no lower part here, so, and he was holding his head. He was in a lot of pain. So I guess he passed away too. You see lots of weird things. It's terrible. War is awful.
Yeah.
And what we got to do, we got to stick together and keep them from coming over here.
All right, any other questions? Let's give it, yeah, we're running out of time here, so I want everyone to give Mr. Carr a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all our guests. Now, I think this is going to be broadcast on TV Hamilton, so make sure you tune in and watch it. We'll probably be showing it in our history classes as well.
You don't get to stand with the hero very often.